Next week is the ice cream social. If you're online and you're watching this, next week is an ice cream social. Come to the church, get some ice cream. We're going to have a good time and some fellowship. We want to get to know you, and if you just haven't been able to make it in a long time, come and enjoy that, and then we'll get started after week after that. We're going to get really looking at Jacob and his story, which is what we got to get to, because that's where that name change to Israel happened. So we're going to get there. So today we're going to read through this, and we're just going to kind of tell us as a story and talk about it on the way as we go. So chapter 25, Abraham has taken another wife, whose name was Keturah. How many of you knew that he had another wife after Sarah? I forgot about it. I started reading, and then it just kind of glazed over that. But he did take another wife, which he was perfectly, able to do that. And then she bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua, Jokstan, and the father of Sheba and Dedan. The descendants of Dedan were the Ashurites. Man, who else wants to do this? The Leturites and the Lemonites. I know I got that one wrong. It sounds good, though. The sons of Midian were Ephraim, Epher, Hanok, Abida, and Eldiah. All of these were the descendants of Keturah. Now, to say all those names, what we're doing here is a couple of things. So we're showing you something. God's letting us see something here. What was Abraham supposed to be? The father of nations, right? Not one nation, nations. Many, many nations. God pointed him to the stars. Can you count them? The sands, all those different things. You are going to be the father of many, many nations. We are seeing that being played out right now. Because, right now he's only had 2 sons so far, correct? Who are the 2 sons he's had? Ishmael and Isaac, right? So Ishmael was born to Hagar, and that's it, right? And Isaac was born to Sarah. Now he's got all these other ones under Keturah. So the other thing that we can kind of see by that is a little bit of time has to go by to have that many kids, right? So we're seeing some generations happen. So this doesn't happen just like right away. This took a few years. So we're just showing a few more years go on here. Let's see. Also, we can see some of these names that we see here. Midian, for example, are the Midianites, and we see the Midianites come up all the time through the Bible. And they are, in fact, when Israel, I think it was in Judges, when Israel was really misbehaving, God said, "Okay, 7 years you're going to be under the hand of the Midianites," and they were. They got it was a bad situation for them. So anyways, we're seeing a lot of the nations kind of develop there, as we've seen prior to this as well. And then we're going to go to verse 5. Abraham left everything he owned to Isaac, but while he was still living, he gave gifts to his sons of his concubines and sent them away from his son Isaac to the land of the east. So, okay, here we go. He's given away the birthright, right? So we're seeing how he's divided it all up. Isaac is the one that's going to get the vast majority of all of it, but Abraham is a pretty generous guy, and he's also given gifts to the concubines' sons that he's had. So who are the concubines? Hagar and Keturah, right? So all of these sons are going to get some gifts and on their way. So as they start, they're almost like little care packages to start a nation. Abraham is a very wealthy person, and so he's got all of these different things. He's dividing it up against his kids, and now he's sending them away because it has to be focused on Isaac right now, because that's where the birthright's going through. That's where the covenant is going through that line. And before he passes away, that's what we've got. And then, let's see, in verse 7. Let me see, do I need to give anything else? No, that's good. In verse 7, Abraham lived 175 years. That's an old lifespan. An old lifespan. I don't think I want to live 175 years on this planet. I'd rather go a little bit earlier than that. But anyway, then Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age, an old man and full of his years. And he was gathered to his people. His sons Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in a cave of Mishpah in Mamre, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite. The field Abraham had bought from the Hittites. Then there Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who then lived near Bir Lahai Roi. Okay, so he lived to be 175 years, and it says here that he was basically full of life. He had accomplished everything God had intended him to accomplish. He had gone through all that. He was filled with love and life. He had his beautiful bride Sarah. She was so pretty, even in old age, that he was afraid to even tell anybody that it was his wife. Kept telling it was his sister, right? So he was very blessed there. And then he was also blessed to have his two sons, whom he loved both of them very, very much. In fact, we're going to see that both of them, Ishmael, we don't think much of Ishmael really anymore after he left. Remember what happened to Ishmael? He was sent away, right? With his mom, but they're doing just fine. They're getting their own wealth built up, and he's doing his own thing, and he's going on his own way. And he had no animosity towards his father, Abraham. So here he is. He's come back, and he's going to help Isaac bury him. There doesn't seem to be any problem, other than the fact that he is a wild donkey of a man, as the Bible calls him. So there's going to be those clashes that we're going to see. But during the time of the death, the sons come, and just like hopefully your family, some families don't have this. We just buried my grandmother, and we had two that we couldn't invite to it because it was just one of those things. So anyway, but in this case, everybody shows up. So 100 years, he breathed his last breath. His sons, Isaac and Mary, buried in the cave. So you know where he's being buried. He's being buried with Sarah, which is a very beautiful picture. We know the story. We've already gone through that with why he purchased that land, where it was, what happened at the land at that time. And so there he is. He's put away. And now we are getting to the part of Isaac who's being blessed. But before we get there, I want to read this in John 8:56. Jesus is talking here. Let me get to it here. John 8:56. Okay, I'm going to start. I'm going to start in 54. I'm just going to read through this. This is Jesus talking, and he's schooling some people right now, and he's kind of telling them some pretty crazy things here, and they want to stone him for it. Just kind of painting the picture and setting it up. So in 54, Jesus replies, "If I glorify myself, my glory means nothing. My Father, whom you claim as your God, is the one who glorifies me. Though you do not know him, I know him. If I said I did not, I would be a liar like you. But I do know him and obey his word." And then he goes here in 56, "Your father Abraham rejoiced in the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad." What does that mean? He saw it. So this was 2,000 years before Christ was born. Abraham saw Jesus in his day. I don't know. I think we've been studying this long enough where I don't know if that really surprised us. He's actually seen Jesus as we've taught and looked through this a couple of times. Remember when he was going to go, Jesus with the two angels, they were going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? Jesus was there. And then this is referring to him actually seeing him right before he passed away and seeing Jesus, I believe, glorified actually, but seeing him there and was glad. So that you got to think of it from Abraham's perspective and what that means. The promise that God gave Abraham that not only would he be the father of nations, but through those nations, the seed would come that would be the Redeemer, right? Our Christ would come through that seed. And then he was glad because he got to see it. God, I think that's beautiful that God let him see that. I think that's wonderful. Then it goes on in 57, where the Pharisees say, "You are not yet 50 years old." And they said to him, "And you have seen Abraham?" And then Jesus replies, "Very truly I tell you," Jesus answered, "before Abraham was born, I am." Now, why would God say that? Why would Jesus say that? What's Jesus telling them right there? Yeah, he's declaring who he was. He is God. He's saying, "I am God. I am Yahweh. I am. Before Abraham, I am." So they're saying, "Well, you're not even old enough to have known him." No. I am. I am. Which is hilarious, really. I mean, it's not hilarious, but when you think about this and they're saying uh, that Jesus is telling them that you don't know the Father, but I do, they're looking right at the Father and they don't know who He is. Jesus is. Anyway, I think that's really interesting. And then they picked up stones and they tried to stone Him, but Jesus slipped away and was from the temple grounds. He was raptured away. So anyway, that's where we're at with that. And so now we're going to go to going back into Genesis, rereading line 11. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who lived near Bir Lahai Roi. Now, where is Bir Lahai Roi? Do you guys remember that name? I know it's there's a lot of names to remember. It's hard. That's why I started making maps so I could trace back where he went, because he goes back and forth to all these different places. And Isaac's in the place where Hagar went, and that's the place that was where God heard her. So that means God hears that place. So again, we've got Isaac going back to a place that there's no, Ishmael and Isaac, they're both brothers. So he's going back to that same area, and there doesn't seem to be, it seems to be kind of redemption in all that. It's just it's all okay. They're a family. I don't know. In my mind, I'd always had them just sort of separate, and they were always separated. It just doesn't seem to be the case here. What does it mean that God blessed his son Isaac? How was he blessed, I guess? Yeah, but not just those. So you've got the inheritance, right? Then you've got the blessing. So you've got this inheritance and this blessing. Where's the blessing part of that? The covenant. That's right. Exactly right. So the covenant line is now being blessed through Isaac. It's going through his line, which means he's got it. It's kind of, again, I keep using this because I just love the story so much, but John getting bit by that serpent, just shaking it off like it never happened, it just blows my mind, because I'm thinking I'd be screaming, running, and doing all kinds of stuff, but not him. He knows his purpose. He knows his purpose. What? Oh, what did I say? Not John. It was Paul. That's right. Thanks, guys. Paul just shakes it off, but I'm not like Paul. I'm probably more like Peter, honestly, if I'm really thinking about it, and I'm probably not even near that even. But anyway, that's so this has fallen on him, which means Isaac really should have a lot of faith. He's got this blessing on him from God, but we're going to see that's not always the case with us, because we get in the world, right, and our mind gets in the world. We're not always in the Spirit, right? So let's read through this. We're going to go to verse 12 now. This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son Ishmael, whom Sarah's slave Hagar, the Egyptian, bore to Abraham. I am going to attempt to read all these names. I am not going to do a good job. And the reason why we're going through this, we're going to see just a couple of items in there, and then we'll move on. So these are the names of the sons of Ishmael, listed in the order of their birth. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, Kedar, Abil, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Mesa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these were the names of the 12 tribal rulers according to their settlements and camp. 12 tribal. Where have you heard that before? The disciples are one. We had 12 disciples. The 12 tribes of Israel, right? So we've got 12, as mentioned a lot in here. But I think this is what this is saying, is that God is blessing also all the lines of Abraham. Now, not with the covenant. That's going through Isaac, but through Ishmael, he is still being blessed. He's still, all the different things that God had told Hagar earlier are true. When God says something, it's true. We can say, "Oh, God said it. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be true," and He's being blessed here. But I don't know, that 12 number. It's a great number in the Bible. The 12 rulers according to their settlements and camps. Ishmael lived to be 130 years old, so he also lived to be a good old age. And he breathed his last, and he died, and he was gathered to his people. His descendants settled in the area of Hilva to Shur, near the eastern border of Egypt, which is where they kind of piled in on there. As you go towards Asher, and they lived in hostility towards all the tribes related to them. So there we go, wild donkey of a man, wild people. That's just who they are, and that's the story. God spoke another truth there. He will be a wild donkey of a man. Okay, then we're getting into Jacob and Esau. So we've kind of covered all up into there. That is really the end of Abraham, although you're going to see Abraham's name appear in the Bible scores and scores of time. I believe it's 90 times in the New Testament alone, I think. Don't quote me. I'm trying to remember that number. I think it's 90 times. He is mentioned, the only person mentioned more than him is Moses. So Abraham is a very important, which you guys know that. It's not telling anything new. He's a very important figure. It all comes, the covenant line started right there. So here we go with Jacob and Esau. This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel the Aramean and Padam Aram. I said that wrong. And sister of Laban the Araman. Was that Robert? Aramean, thank you. There we go. So, we went through that story. So Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. Where have we seen that before? We're kind of following another story. Have you guys noticed that yet? Just following just another story. So just like Abraham, he's in a situation. 40 years old in this time was a pretty old age to be married. They got married a lot younger than this. What age do you think people got married back in those days? Something like that. Yeah. Man, can you imagine? Can you imagine today's kids getting married at 12 or 15 years old? My goodness, we'd be in some trouble. But you know what? Kids are gone. Empty nest syndrome. It ain't all bad. Isaac, but Isaac learned from his dad. He did things a little bit, he learned some stuff. So what does Isaac do to help in the situation of his wife not being pregnant? He what? He prayed. He prayed to God for it, right? And so is he going to trust God? And yeah, he does. And so God is the answer, right? We see these incredible parallels between Isaac and Abraham, and we can see where God really wants Isaac to experience the same things Abraham does, and the experience is a big thing. I don't know if y'all think about that a lot, but we go through life, and I always want to project myself past the problem. I always want to get in myself. I want to think, okay, I don't want to do anything. I want to see the end result be good, right? But the journey, the learning, I don't know, like you're a lump of clay, and he's carving and he's taking pieces off and slapping pieces in. He put a lot of clay into me from time to time. And yet that is what makes us and builds us. We can't just instantly become that. God loved us too much for that. He didn't want us to be just a computer program where he could just type in the code. He wanted you to experience and walk with him. He wanted to walk with us. He wanted us to learn. Like your kids, if you think about that, if you've had kids and you've watched them and you think back through the years, how tough those times may have been and the disciplines may have been tough, but then you can see what those disciplines may have done in them and what kind of man they've become or what kind of woman they've become through that. And there's a value to that. And that walking with God. And then there'll be a day where these bodies, these sinful bodies that we won't have them any longer. We'll have brand new bodies that are incorruptible. And I can't wait for that day. I don't want to sin. Again, not John, but Paul said, why do I do the things I don't want to do and don't do the things I want to do, right? We will have that day, but it's not today. It'll have to be the day God chooses for us. But until that day, let's walk with him and enjoy our time with him and enjoy the struggles. I know it sounds weird, but when you put yourself into God, we talked about the spiritual gifts, but that joy that we have when we're with him in the good times and the bad, through the big struggles that we have, there's always more value in the things that were difficult than the things that were easy. If somebody gave you a car, you're not going to value that car the same way you would if you saved up for that car and took a long time and then paid for that car. That car is going to mean something much more to you. And God knows that's in our character and our nature. He put it there. So here we go. He prayed, and then Rebekah became pregnant. Praise the Lord. So it took 20 years, by the way. They don't tell us this here, but it took 20 years for her to get pregnant. So that he had to wait, just like Abraham had to wait. Abraham had to wait 25, so it's a little better. But 20 years, can you imagine? Anyway, so he's 60 when he has the children. The babies jostled within each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire to the Lord. She knows to do this. She goes and prays, right? What are we learning? This whole thing, we're talking about Abraham, and what did Abraham mean to you? And to me, it was about his prayer, his petitions that he would make. It really hit me this time reading through all this stuff, and it's something I'm not doing. I need to be doing better at. And so here we see, they learned it from their father and their experiences with Abraham, that you go to the Lord in prayer. They see that. There's a trust. So they went and inquired of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, man, I wish God would speak to me clearly like he does her. The two nations are in your womb. The two people from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Man, that's kind of a lot for a mother, I think, to hear. That's a lot going on. So you got twins. She can feel them inside of her. And they're to such a degree, she felt like she needed to say, "What's going on, Lord? Tell me what's happening." And boy, God says this, and that whole symbol of what's going on there is what's going to happen. It's going to repercussions all through the Scripture, where this between these two people that are going to be inside, these two brothers that represent their nations. They'll be separate. One's going to be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. So there's a lot of weird stuff happening here too, because the culture of the day was that the younger would serve the older. That was how it was done. That's how you did it, right? And now we're getting into some birthright stuff that's a lot different the way God does it than the way we feel like it should be done. So here he's telling them it's going to be the opposite of what you would expect. And so this is what she's got to worry about. Now, the two nations are going to be the Edomites and the Israelites. So we're going to get into that here just right now, actually. But, with Rebekah had a lot of different things going for her. She was very beautiful, right? When we heard about that, because when Eliezer found her, he's like, "Oh, she's pretty." He's going to love her. That just the sight alone. But not only that, when he was saying she's beautiful, it didn't just mean she was beautiful like Sarah was beautiful on the outside. She had some inside qualities that were very beautiful. What did Rebekah do when he got there? Yeah. Served, served and served, and it wasn't just an easy thing. As Pastor went through, is like, there's 20 to 30 gallons in each camel can drink. I don't know what those pitchers could hold. I'm guessing 2 to 3 gallons, something like that. That's a lot of trips, and he had 20 camels. 20, right? 20. 10 camels. But Eliezer was very thirsty himself. He had a lot of water was coming their way. She had a servant's heart, a heart of a servant. And that's something that this church has always spoke of. And that's what I hope that you have inside of you, is the heart of a servant. If that's not something that you have, and some people are going to be more gifted than that other, but that's something we need to develop. That's something we should all have a desire to have. And if it's not a desire, at least a thought to serve. It's very important. Jesus taught us this himself. And here we have Rebekah, who does all of these different things. And I kind of missed this earlier. I want to talk about that a minute ago. She was also a virgin. She had all these different qualities. But so she seemed perfect, and then she was barren, or it seemed barren. But then God, right? But God. So anyway, I just want to throw that in there. Okay, let's move on. 24, because we're getting into some cool stuff here. Not that the other stuff wasn't cool, but this is really interesting, I think. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's hand, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. That's how we know it was 20 years, because we knew he was 40 when he married Rebekah. 20 years, 60 years. Anyway, so let's talk about these kids. I don't know. When I came out, my dad tells me the story a lot. He thinks it's really funny. He said, "Man, I was so excited when you were going to come out." And then they handed it to me, and your head was shaped like a cone. He said, "What have I done?" So, he just loves to say that all the time. I don't know why. He thinks it's funny. I probably would too if it was my kid. But anyway, so we got this red, hairy kid, and then we've got this kid that was grasping the heel of Esau. So the names themselves, what do they mean? What does the name Esau mean? Yeah, Esau means hairy, but then you said red, and that's Edom. Edom means red, which both are correct. Yes, those two names, red and hairy, and he was red and he was hairy. Red comes up a lot when we talk about Esau. And then we've got this. So he comes out, and he looks like that. Okay, and then we've got Jacob that comes out, and Jacob. Why was Jacob named Jacob? What does Jacob's name mean? Yes, it is. Yeah. It literally means heel catcher, right? Heel catcher, which is not a compliment. It was not a compliment. A heel catcher is a trickster. It's a deceiver. It's somebody who's trying to trip you up and get away with some stuff. And we see in his life, the names are true. They mean these things. And then it's kind of interesting. Have you heard... And I don't know what to make of this, guys. Maybe you guys can help me out. Maybe Pastor can help me out a little bit. But the only other place we hear of the heel in the Bible before this is where? That's it. Genesis which is referring, So the heel, right? So the heel, it's going to strike the heel, but then he'll crush the head. Where is Esau's foot when he's coming out of the womb? It's probably on the head of Jacob, and then we have the hand grabbing the heel, striking at the heel. I don't know. It's just there, and I don't know. Is anything there? And then the name means deceiver. So we're talking about it's not good. None of it's really good right now. And we're going to read, as we read through it, there's a lot to Jacob that's not great. It doesn't start off good with him. But then there's a name change later on, and things get a little better. So there's this wrestling match, right, that we're going to talk about later that changes some stuff. Anyway, let's move on. So that's what's happening in the womb and just coming out of the womb. And then we see that the two boys grow up. That's in verse 27. And Esau becomes a skillful hunter, a man of the open country. We can see these. I love the descriptions because I can totally picture this redheaded, hairy dude hunting out there. I don't know about you. There's a Disney movie that's, what is that Scottish movie that came out with a big hairy guy with the red hair? I don't know, maybe my kids are already grown when that came out. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I can see this guy though, right? Skillful hunter, a man of the open country. And then Jacob is content with staying at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau. But Rebekah loved Jacob. Man, we got some favorites going on in a family. So we're on YouTube. Which kid's your favorite? You don't want to say. I'm just playing around. You don't typically out and say, "Oh, I love this kid." Not so much this one, right? It's just kind of. But we have one parent favoring one kid, one parent favoring the other kid. It doesn't go so well in this household. It really just doesn't. And there's a lot of trickery that goes on later on, as we'll discover. But that's kind of what this is like the beginning of it right here that we start to see. That's kind of the setup for everything that's going to happen through this. Anyway, let's go here. Now we're going to get into the part that really starts to set things up. When Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew." There's that red. I'm famished. That is why they called him Edom. That's the red. And then Jacob replied, "First, tell me your birthright." "Look, I'm about to die," Esau said. "What good is a birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. Okay, let's talk about some stuff in this birthright and what actually happened here. So we've got the stew, we've got him coming in after a long day, and he wants some food. And this birthright thing. So this birthright, if you are a son of Abraham or if you are a son of Isaac, this birthright is probably talked about a lot. It probably comes up, and there's some responsibility that's going to go along with that. As Isaac's found out when he's doing his prayer and he's doing those types of things, he's trying to do his best. We're going to see some mess ups, but he's trying to do his best to follow his dad's footsteps and do right by God, right? But here we've got this situation where the other thing is that you might not want that. You might not want that responsibility. You might even hate the idea of that responsibility. You may want the stuff, but you might not necessarily want the blessing that goes along with it, because it means you might have to do something. I don't know that they preach. Well, they're going to carry that. So I don't know if preach might not be the right word, but they're going to have to convey that to the next generation and then to the setup for the next generation, to the next generation. There's something that's going to go with that way, but I don't know about preaching. Is there anything with the firstborn or... Yeah, he'll become the patriarch of the family. And this guy loves the wild field. He wants to be gone. He wants to be hunting. I mean, I know 1,000 guys like that. They don't care about the rest of the stuff. And that's where Esau is. The interesting thing, though, hang on a second. Jacob knew the birthright, and he wanted it. He knew the value of it, and he wanted it. He sought after it. And so the thing about this really is, though, God already knew all of this. This was spoken to Rebekah prior to these kids growing up. This was when they were still in the womb that God spoke out and said, well, here's what you got. You've got two nations inside of you. One's going to be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger, right? So, in a way, it wasn't even Esau's birthright to begin with. He didn't have the right to sell it, except for in Levitical law, the mother or the father could not, well, it wouldn't be the mother, but the father could not look at his kids and go, okay, I want to give you the birthright. It was the older one, according to Levitical law, or Deuteronomy. I think it's in Deuteronomy. So he couldn't just do that, but the kids could sell it to one another. So you could do that, so that's kind of in there, but it really wasn't his to begin with. God's the one that determines the blessing part of it. The inheritance is a different thing, but they usually go together, right? And we're going to find out later on that Esau really wanted that inheritance. He wanted the stuff. He just didn't care about the birthright. And the birthright is everything, In fact, later on, you'll read that God hated Esau. Now, he didn't hate Esau as a person. He hated what Esau sought after and what his heart was. He loved Jacob in his heart. So the question that comes up a lot would be, while the two were still in the belly of Rebekah, God seems to have chosen which one. And the culture of the time is that the oldest would get it, right? But God saw it differently and decided to do something different. Why? Why wouldn't God just make Esau, the older one, have the blessing and the inheritance? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, God's not bound by time. He sees everything. When he looks at something, even the child knit within inside the womb, he doesn't just see that child. He looks at that child and can see every generation that comes from that child on out. And when he looked at you, he can see everything. Have you ever thought about that when you looked at your kids, or maybe you just thought about that for yourself, that everybody that comes from you and what will happen in the future because of maybe something that you did or that your mom, something along those lines. Or, with the kids, I got a kid that's a doctor right now. I think, man, he's probably saving some lives. It's kind of neat. I had a hand in that a little bit. But those types of things, God sees all of that ahead of time. He knows all of these different things. But we also see that, the oldest doesn't always, in fact, almost in the Bible, never is the one, right? So Cain and Abel, which one got the blessing there? It wasn't Cain. Cain was first. It was Abel, right? Well, it really wasn't even Abel, because Abel was killed. He wasn't even the one. That really wasn't too much of a blessing, but he was a good man, right? So it was his brother after that. And then there were some other examples. Man, I had a bunch of them in my head. Now I'm trying to think through them. But almost every example of any kids that were born, just think of the prodigal son. David's a great example. That's one of them, absolutely. David's a fantastic example. In fact, his dad, he lined them all up, right? When Samuel was going to come, yeah, you want my kids? He lined them all up, didn't even think about David, left him in the field. He had it all in order, the oldest, the youngest. And he's just standing there ready. Okay, what's going to happen? Samuel comes through like, well, it ain't any of these. What else you got, right? The youngest, right? So yeah. Prodigal son's a good example. The only one really that the Bible, I'm sure there's others, but Jesus is the firstborn, right? But he's the only one that's really righteous. He was the only one that really deserved it, right? He's deserving of it all. None of us are. So God handles that birthright through these family lines. And then what does Esau do? He throws it away for some soup. I'm going to go to Hebrews 12:16 real quick and just read this little passage. Yeah. Hebrews 12:16. Okay. It's a warning and an encouragement. I love Hebrews. Here's what it says. See that no one is sexually immoral or is godless like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son. Afterwards, as you know, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected. Even though he sought the blessing with tears, he could not change what he had done. So, what do you care about in your life? What's important to you in your life, and what are you seeking after? Where's your heart aimed at? Okay, so what else? Anybody got anything else on these verses here? It's kind of a famous story in the Bible. We've heard this one all before. Very important story, and very important family. These two, it's about to get really messy. And we thought Abraham was messy. This is about to get even messier. All right, let's look at 26. I'd like to get through 26 because what we're trying to do. So I'm going to, we're just kind of reading through this today. I want to do this because next week is the ice cream social, and then we're going to get into really the life of Jacob here and his whole story. So chapter 26, verse 1. Now there was a famine in the land. Man, these famines happen sometimes. Besides the previous famine in Abraham's time, when Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar, the Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in the land for a while, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give these lands and confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. Here's that blessing of the covenant right here. And it's reiterated as to what he's going to have. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and will give them all of these lands, and through your offspring, all the nations of the earth will be blessed, because Abraham obeyed me and did everything I required of him, keeping my commandments and decrees and my instructions. So Isaac stayed in Gerar. Yeah, see, this land, I mean, it's pretty clear who the land belongs to. Pretty clear. I don't know how much clearer you can get. If you're talking to people and they're saying, well, I don't know, they kind of lost that land and somebody else is there now. No. This is all God's. You know, it'll always be all God's. And he has clearly given it to the Israelites. When the men of that place asked him about his wife, he said, she is my sister, because he is afraid to say she is my wife. He thought, the men of this place might kill me on the account of Rebekah, because she is so beautiful. Where have we heard that before? Like father, like son, right? Yeah. There is that generational curse, right? Yeah. So he's got some growing to do. He's got some stretching to do. But we're going to see that God is going to take care of him the same way he took care of Abraham. Tara wrote me earlier. She's like, "It just happened again." I was like, "Yeah, man, isn't that crazy?" She did the same thing I did. I had to laugh out loud with it because I didn't remember reading that before that it happened to Isaac, same as it happened to Abraham, but it did, and so he lied, and he did it for his own good. But he did stay in the place that God told him to stay, at least for a little bit. When the men of that place asked him about his wife, he said, well, I just went to that, didn't I? Verse 8, when Isaac had been there a long time, Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife. Oh, he's busted. So Abimelech summoned Isaac and said, she is really your wife. Why did you say she is my sister? Now, Abimelech, we've heard that name a bunch through the Bible. Abraham, right? The encounters that he had. Abimelech is a title. It's not necessarily the name of a person. It may also be the name of a person, but it's also a title. So this is the Abimelech, the title. It's not the same man. This is comical. Yeah, why did you say it? Why did you tell me that? And so he got busted. Then Abimelech said, Then Abimelech said, what is this you have done to us? The men might have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. So Abimelech gave orders to all the people, anyone who harms this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. Again, we see that the pagan king is being more virtuous than God's child, right? That's going through all this that we see. Here it is again. So in verse 12, Isaac planted crops in the land. The same year he had reaped a hundredfold because the Lord had blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he had become very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with the earth. That's a pretty mean thing to do, because we're talking about the kind of wealth you had back then had a lot to do with water. Why would that be? Why would water be so important to them back then, other than your own health and surviving? They're in the desert. What was their wealth that they had? Animals. They had to be watered. So we had to have a lot of water for these animals. And these wells were super important. And they cost a bunch of money to make. And they were a lot of hard work. He had all of his hands doing this, digging these out. Pretty big deal. And the Philistines just come because they were envious of how well he was doing and didn't kick it all in and fill it all in. What would you do if that happened to you? Everything you had built up and put together, and then somebody comes along and just fills it all in with dirt, so to speak. Right? I'd sue him. No, I'm just kidding. What do we do now, right? Throw some stone? I don't know. So let's see what he does. Then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us." This happens later on too. Well, it doesn't really happen like that, does it? Though they become too powerful, too many. That's the Israelites. They keep growing and gaining, and eventually Israel decided, well, we're just going to enslave you guys. But back here, he's telling, get out of here. You're too much. You're too powerful. Move away. So Isaac moved away. He did what he said, what Abimelech asked him to do, and he encamped in the valley of Gerar, where he settled. Isaac reported that reopened the wells that he had dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines again stopped up. And Abraham, after Abraham had died, and he gave them the same name his father had given them. Remember, he named all the wells, the different names that they were. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water there. So again, it happens again, and now they're digging more. And so we've got this water coming up here. But the herders of Gerar quarreled with those of Isaac and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Esek because of their dispute with him. And Esek means dispute. Then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that one also, so they named it Sitnah. And Sitnah means? Is Satan? Did you say Satan? Is it really? It means opposition. But maybe it means that too. I don't know. Yeah. Sitnah. So he moved on from there and dug another well, and no one quarreled over it. So he named it Rehoboth, saying, "Now the Lord has given us room, and we will flourish in the land." And Rehoboth means room. Okay, so he didn't do what a lot of people would do in the case of filling in. I mean, we could have a war here, right? It could have been a lot of bloodshed. You could do a lot of different things. That's what a lot of people would have done back then. Certainly what the Philistines would have done if it was the opposite. But he just moved on and then started digging more wells. And then they had opposition. He'd dig another one, right? Let's see how it continues to go on from there. And let's see how that what that brings about. So from there, he went up to Beersheba that night, and the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you, and I will increase the numbers of your descendants after the sake of my servant Abraham." Amen. Then Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servants dug a well. And in the meanwhile, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar, and Ahazath, his personal advisor, Ficola, I don't know, the commander of the forces, Isaac asked him, "Why have you come to me since you were so hostile to me and sent me away?" You see, you never really want to fight evil with evil. You never really want to do that. That's not what we're meant to do. Jesus told us to do a few things whenever we came across a situation. What are we supposed to do when someone strikes our cheek? Turn the other cheek, right? Right, yeah. Yeah, don't fight evil with evil. That's not what Christians do. And so they answered, this is what they answered. We saw clearly that the Lord was with you. So we said, there ought to be a sworn agreement between us and you. Let us make a treaty with you that you will do us no harm, just as we did not harm you, well, except for covering up the wells, but always treated you well. Yeah, well, and sent you away peacefully. And now you are blessed by the Lord. So again, never do evil with evil. We need them to see God in us, because God's what turns the heart of other men. So our enemies, what we want to do is we want to show them God. We want to show them God. They can either accept it or they won't accept it. But we need to show them God. And a lot of times they will. A lot of times they will. And if we pray for them, I mean, think of the opposite. If we don't pray for our enemies, if we just curse them all the time, I mean, we're not going to get anywhere with that, right? We need to be Christians. We need to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. Now, that doesn't mean you're to be a punching bag, right? Jesus said, dust the feet off your shoes, right? If they don't accept you, right? So there's some times where we have to be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves. I love that. Okay. Let's see here. We're gonna wrap this up pretty good right here. So Isaac then made a feast for them, and they ate and drank. Early the next morning, the men swore an oath to each other. Then Isaac sent them on their way, and they went peacefully. That day, Isaac's servants came and told him about the well they had dug. They said, "We found water," and they called it Sheba. And to this day, the name of the town has been Beersheba. Pretty awesome. So that means, by the way, Sheba or Beersheba. No, does it sound? Yeah, it means the oath of seven, and Beersheba can mean the well of the oath and the well of the seven. So that's where we got to today. So what about that? So we're on this story, and I know we didn't put a whole lot into that in the 26. We're trying to get to some of the other stuff. We need to do all the setup stuff, and we need to kind of go through this. But what is there anything that we're kind of confused about or anything like that? Kind of stood a little bit more on the Esau, Isaac part of it to get it in there. Yeah, it's almost the same story. Yeah. Yeah. And I hadn't either until this run. I mean, I probably taught through this 3 or 4 times, and I never really saw that for some reason. I don't know. Sometimes God blinds us until it's time for that. I don't know. Like, focus on this. I really want you to see this. And then all of a sudden, take a look at this. Got something for you here. It's a living word. It's always working for us. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, at least my Bible, which is not like not super small or anything like that, but we're only on page 27 in Genesis so far. We've been at this since January, the first week in January, but we've only scratched the surface. We haven't even gotten into, there's so much more there that we could, we'd be here for years unpacking. I don't think we ever will. I think Jesus will continue teaching us forever. I don't know if we die, if we'll just have everything kind of just go, because we're going to be like Jesus, right? Because we're all going to come in and we'll just know it all, or if Jesus will be there just teaching us stuff all the time. I kind of hope it's the second. I kind of hope it's that, but I'll take either way. I mean, whatever he wants to do is great with me, but man, can you imagine him just teaching you? Yeah, the sooner the better, Lord. Anything else in that? No? Okay. Well, Ice Cream Social next week. We're going to have, are we making homemade? Making homemade ice cream, and then bring toppings, right? Everybody bring a little topping, their favorite topping, and then we can just kind of have, man, I don't know if you guys are in insulin or nothing like that, but I'll be really getting high on that stuff to make myself bulletproof for the ice cream. I can't wait. Metformin galore. So, all right, guys. Holy Father, thank you, Lord, again for your word. Thank you, Lord. Let us take it in. Just your daily bread. It means so much to us, Lord. Just give us the hearts to be in your word every day, Lord, to learn something new. Just pour into us, Father. Holy Spirit, just open up your word to us. Show us what you want to show us, Lord. Give us hearts to serve. In your great name we pray. Amen.